Hello and welcome. Today I will be reviewing the latest addition to the Wings of Fire book series, The Hybrid Prince. I'm breaking this video into different sections. First, a summary, my thoughts on the story, historical and modern day connections, the characters, where this could lead, and changes I'd make. If you haven't read the book and want to avoid spoilers, you should come back to this video after you read it. Before I begin, I just want to say that I started reading these books in the 4th grade, and now I'm a high school senior. While I still enjoy these books, it's clear from the writing style that is made for younger age groups. I will not be critiquing the writing style or aspects of the story that are clearly simplified for the understanding of younger readers, because that's how it was intended to be. However, if I believe something can be changed while still working with respect to the younger audience, I will include it. Summary. Let's get started. The book begins with Umber and Sora flying away from Jade Mountain Academy. Umber is anxious and feels like his sister is his responsibility. Both of them decide to search the island south of the rainforest for somewhere quiet to settle down for a while. They find plenty of small islands with mysterious messages to keep going, before eventually finding a decent-sized island to rest on. While the two siblings slept, a kraken began to pull Umber into the water. Sora freezes at the possibility of losing another sibling. Luckily, a mysterious dragon pulls him out of the water. This dragon is named Mulberry. Mulberry is a hybrid with a special power called Dragon Speak. Essentially, he's an empath. He can sense the emotions of others and project emotions onto them, usually to calm dragons down. He used this power to get the Kraken off of Umber and told them about the island he lives on, the Isle, which is full of hybrids and refugees, and Mulberry promises that they will be safe there. Umber immediately falls for Mulberry, and he seems to reciprocate the feelings for the most part. When they get to the Isle, they find out that Mulberry's mother is Queen Beryl, a Skywing who fled to the island to escape Queen Scarlet, the ruler of the island alongside her husband, Snakeroot, a Leafwing-Nightwing hybrid. Mulberry is extremely popular and constantly followed by dragons, so he and the Mudwing siblings are separated for the time being. Before they enter the giant and misenchanted wooden castle on the island, they are surrounded by little metal dragons called Sharpwings. The Sharpwings ask for everyone's name and category when they first reach the island. When they reach the throne room, a sign appears on the doors, and a huge mess is created. This sign is propaganda, and Queen Beryl tells Umber and Sora to ignore this, saying that it was done by a ghost. She summons a wild-winged dragon, a dragon who you can no longer tell which tribe they are from due to generations of intertwined relations, named Quokka. Quokka shows them around the castle, and Umber gets into a fight with a wild wing called Typhon, who is trying to see if Umber had fireproof scales by burning him. Umber takes him down easily, impressing the king and queen. They assign him to teach the king's teeth, who are their royal guard. One day, as Umber sees Prince Mulberry flying alone, he decides to follow him so they can talk. They fly further from the kingdom, and eventually Umber is struck by lightning and sharp pain. Mulberry finally realizes Umber was following him and takes him to the healer, Paua, who is descended from Waterfall, an Animus. But not just any Animus, the Animus who built the palace on the Isle. It turns out that the island is actually called the Dungeon Isle, and it was made as a prison thousands of years ago. Umber flew into the barrier, and each time a dragon does that, the consequences become worse. Mulberry is the only dragon that can cross it. It turns out Umber had been passed out for a long time, and both Mulberry and Sora came to visit him every day. When he finally wakes, he learns about the sleeping powder used to sedate dragons, told to him by the ghost. The ghost turns out to actually be a living dragon named Platypus, Quokka's sister. Platypus has been fighting back against the king and queen, who she claims are the wrongful rulers. She does this by trashing the palace and leaving propaganda notes and encouraging people to fight back. Platypus takes Umber into the walls of the palace and to the memory room, a room that displays the memory of Queen Falcon's assassination by a Rainwing and a Beetlewing, after which she introduces him to the Triumvirate, the elected leaders of the Dungeon Isle, before Queen Beryl's hostile takeover. These leaders are Tuatara, Horizon, and Monarch, the old Silkwing Queen. Umber is still deciding whether to help them, or continue his daily life training the king's teeth. He is grappling with the idea of fighting back against orders since all he ever was taught to do was to follow them. He and Sora go to a Northern Lights concert, The concert is run by two siblings, Aurora and Borealis. Aurora singing songs of rebellion, and Borealis playing the drums. The performance is ultimately cut short due to Platypus and her propaganda notes. After this, we learn that Aurora is on Platypus's side, and the two are implied to be in a romantic relationship. Later, Umber and Quokka are looking for the Sharpwings, the little metal dragons that haven't been leaving Sora alone, so they follow one that was watching her when it changes shifts. They find a big room of Sharpwings who seem to have created their own society. From there, they learn Animus spells that created the prison and the dragon who made them, Precipice the Skywing. Umber fixes one of the broken Sharpwings, and he and Quokka are led back down to the memory room, where they meet up with Platypus. The Sharpwing, called 19, stabs Quokka's palm and shows her a memory, one of the triumvirate being violently attacked by Beryl and Snakeroot. Then 19 stabs Platypus's palm repeatedly and shows a memory of her ancestors, a Beetlewing and Leafwing queens. The two had a village called Harmony that was a refuge for all hybrids and all other dragons who needed it. Later, Umber brings Mulberry to this room, and the vision of his ancestor shows Precipice creating the Animus spell. They made it so no one could ever leave unless they were descendants of either Queen Summit or the Nightwing Queen. It turns out Mulberry is descended from both of them, and that is why he can cross the barrier. In the vision, there's a map of the Isle with a circle on it. Umber believes that this might be where the Animus object that created the dungeon is hidden. Unfortunately, on their way out, they're stopped by Queen Beryl, who locks Mulberry in his room with chains. Platypus and Umber save him with the help of Dugong, a Mudwing Highwing who has a crush on Sora. They fly away to the place on the map behind a waterfall and find 2 eggs. They get a vision from Precipice saying whoever raises the dragonets in the eggs from the old village of Harmony will be able to leave the dungeon isle and come back in 3 years to save everyone. Once they get back, they show the eggs to the triumvirate, who decline the offer of raising them. They stage an uprising and throw Beryl and Snakeroot out of power. The book ends with one of the eggs hatching. Mulberry, Umber, and Quokka leave to raise it, and Sora and Dugong stay to look over the other egg that hasn't hatched. They name the hatched dragonet Harmony. In the epilogue, there are different perspectives from many tribes reporting that their queens have gone missing, and then the book ends. My reactions. I actually really enjoyed this book, and the story and the characters. I'm glad we got to see a new part of the map, and that we got to see some of the history. I really liked the ancient timeline with the Queen's Claws and the Peace Accords. I would have to say that Quokka and Paua were 2 of my favorite characters, and I like to see all the hybrids and how their different tribal backgrounds fused together. The concept of the prison was really cool, and I was pleasantly surprised at how many real-world connections there were in this book. I think especially with the political state of the United States right now, that this is a good book to teach kids how to think critically. Speaking of connections, this book is full of them. One of the major ones is the connection between the King's Teeth and the Gestapo or the KGB. These dragons were essentially set out by Beryl to kill any dragon that opposed her or questioned her rule. Though many dragons hated her, she used this tactic to keep dragons in line and prevent rebellion. This also relates to ICE, or Immigration Control and Enforcement, in the U.S. right now. Beryl and Snakeroot's authoritarian leadership is another historical connection. They violently take the throne and rule by force, pushing out the representative democracy on the island before. Near the beginning, everyone keeps repeating how everything is fine. They are constantly trying to cover up the cracks in the system and make dragons think that they're in absolute power. Recently, the US and other countries have been doing this. For example, the UAE has been pushing content about how unserious they are and how nice Dubai still is. They are trying to push an illusion that they are rich and unaffected by the war and still in power since their economy is mostly based off tourism and slavery. Similarly, the US has been deleted and hiding videos speaking up against ICE and the current leaders. This tactic is meant to eliminate hope and keep citizens in line. Umber in My Eyes is similar to The Horse from Animal Farm by George Orwell, if you've read that book. He always follows orders and stays in line without questioning until the end. This is when he veers off from Animal Farm. He has to learn how to change and question the system instead of following it blindly. I believe that this is the mindset Tui wants us to embrace, and that's why he was the protagonist. I think that the message that she was trying to push is for readers to stop blindly following orders and learn how to question them, as Umber does. Characters. This book adds plenty of new characters and 2 new tribes, being the Wild Wings and the Sharp Wings. I'm going to give a short breakdown on the important characters and my thoughts. First of all, we have Umber, the protagonist. Umber the Mudwing is a sibling of Clay and Sora's who lost one sibling in the war. He is a trained soldier and feels protective of Sora. He prefers being told what to do instead of making decisions for himself. I think his perspective was important as he learns to question the world. He has to go against what he's comfortable with and begins to analyze what is going on in his life. When he meets Mulberry, he instantly falls head over heels for him. In my eyes, this seemed a bit shallow, and I wish it happened more gradually. But I think overall, he was a good protagonist for the story Tui was trying to tell in this book. He trusts easily and has to learn to go against that instinct. I hope that in the next book, we have a more critical protagonist. Sora is less of her own character in this book and more of a plot point for Umber. She has to realize that Sora is her own dragon and can be independent. She's working through the trauma of Crane's death and the whole icicle situation, but overall she's becoming more stable. She makes Umber realize that there are so many different aspects to one dragon than just what they've done. I would have loved to see more conflict between the siblings and show more of her personality, but maybe we'll see that in another book. Mulberry was an interesting addition to this book. I feel like his dragon speak powers were used more like empathy, and he has the ability to influence the others and spy. I think other dragons should have been at least a little concerned that he could be manipulating them. Maybe have a plot point where Beryl gets him to use his power like a sleeping powder and keep everyone calm and dormant instead of fighting the system. Or maybe have him sense the evilness and manipulation of his parents much earlier. He's framed as a people pleaser, and I think realistically, his parents would have used his power to get more control of the citizens of the Court of Refuge, especially since he wouldn't fight back. Or until the end, anyway, when he changes his mindset and goes against his parents. I was put off by Umber and Mulberry's relationship. It feels quite awkward. Umber immediately falls for him, but it's a bit confusing whether or not Mulberry reciprocates the feelings. He says he does and reassures him, but to me it felt like Mulberry's people-pleaser personality coming out, not something real. I would have either liked to see Mulberry fall for Umber even more, or slow down and make the whole romance spend the entire book. Maybe Umber falls for him in the beginning, but doesn't realize it because he's still dwelling on his crush on Keebly from back at Jade Mountain. Then, when he gets to that island, he sees that everyone loves Mulberry, and he could get jealous. Mulberry could keep getting swept away from Umber by the crowd, and realize he likes talking and hanging out with Umber. When Mulberry visits him every day when he's healing with Paua, that could be the initiating event. When they meet at the pond, Umber realizes that he likes Mulberry a lot, and this could be solidified when he saves him from the tower. I feel like that would set the two of them moving away to raise harmony on another island in the end of the book much better. Speaking of his parents, they didn't seem that dangerous of villains. Beryl is not serious enough to be so scary. She plays this facade of the nice, somewhat dumb queen. She doesn't know anything about the Sharpwings and doesn't care. She's been living on the island long enough that she knows what the Sharpwings do, but still plays it off as if it's just a random thing that happens, and she doesn't care. She's constantly saying, everything is fine, but you don't believe her because she's just yelling and telling people these things. She yells at Snakeroot and makes his vision seem stupid and meaningless. It feels like she's grasping for control, but clearly has none. She just sees Umber pin down Taipan and asks him to train the soldiers, trusting him immediately. She has no real motive for grabbing the throne, and her whole character has so much untapped potential, and the same for Snakeroot. I would give them both more motive. Snakeroot has this potential to be a creepy, horrifying king, but Beryl is constantly making him seem like just a lunatic and telling him to chill out. Let him be creepy. If he's supposed to be unstable, lean into that. Have him attack dragons, or at least arrest dragons for petty crimes and be more paranoid. Let his visions scare the population into submission. She could even make him have fake visions to make dragons do things she wants. Maybe a vision that Platypus could destroy the Court of Refuge so people would start hunting Platypus, and then she has a real reason to hide and be scared. For Beryl, maybe the council has a vote, and as her backstory and reason to take over, and voted that Mulberry was too dangerous with his dragon speak, or that he should go to Pyria and find help. And in that scenario, maybe Beryl didn't want that, and so she and Snakeroot take over the Court of Refuge, or maybe they always wanted to, and now they can use Mulberry as a weapon to influence others' emotions and manipulate them. Maybe he even manipulates more dragons to help them exile the Triumvirate. The battle between them seems so anticlimactic. There was no build-up, no struggle, and she just comes in and tries to kill them. Maybe have her poison them with sleeping powder or something. Anything to give the battle higher stakes. And for Beryl herself, make her more controlling. She should have punished Aurora for her revolutionary lyrics in her songs, or put a bounty on Platypus's head instead of just being extremely annoyed. Maybe she even took in the Silkwing Royal under her wing, convincing him that his parents abandoned him to get him to be one of her closest allies, helping control Taipan and Dugong. He could even be a spy. She should have leaned into the Sharpwings, being serious about categories and evaluating Sora and Umber. She trusts them immediately, and I think that she should have had someone in charge of them. Yes, Quokka is giving the responsibility of taking care of them, but Beryl knows Quokka's sister is Platypus, an enemy of the state. So why would she trust Quokka with these strangers that could be a potential threat to Beryl? If she wanted to successfully indoctrinate them, she should have put someone like Taipan or Royal in charge of them. And in the final battle, she just talks to other people instead of fighting her battles. It would be cool if she used her fire and tried to burn civilians, or tried to take others down with her. She could have unleashed a crazy lunatic Snakeroot on the crowd. It would have made the book more eerie and made Beryl as a character more of a threat. This way, when characters tell Umber everything is fine, it doesn't feel forced. It feels like they're actually scared to tell the truth. Like, actually. Maybe Umber could have trouble making friends because people are so scared to tell him the truth, especially after he becomes one of the king's teeth. Then everyone would be paranoid and scared of him and stay away. This could be what finally makes him realize that everything is not indeed okay. Instead of just meeting Platypus and trusting her right away, maybe the king's teeth go after her under Beryl's orders. Umber should have pinned her down, and then Quokka could stop him. Then he could realize that she's Quokka's sister and not just evil. Since he knows Quokka already, he would have reason to trust Platypus and follow her into the castle walls. Speaking of Platypus, she was a lot. Like, a lot. I loved Beryl's book, and the two of them have similar energy. I think Platypus should have had a more personal beef with Beryl. She just seems so rageful, and the situation doesn't seem as serious. Maybe have her get really mad and accidentally hurt someone or kill someone that was threatening the Triumvirate or Quokka. She is depicted as angry and rageful, but this is mostly in her words and not her actions. Her actions just depict her as someone who loves mischief, and I think Tui should lean into this feeling of her despair. Her feeling that the system is pitted against her and she can't do anything about it, or that others aren't helping. It would make it more easy to relate to her, like it was easy to relate to Peril in the second arc. I also think her relationship with Aurora could have been tied in, with Aurora acting as a stabilizing force. I'd also like to see more of Aurora's struggles. The two of them reminded me of Elphaba and Glinda from Wicked, and I think that not being able to be together because of Beryl and the Triumvirate could have been more important to their character arc. I think Platypus should have taken her fighting back more seriously. Aurora has a voice and a power to change things, but just because she's doing it through art doesn't make it any less dangerous. I think Platypus should be more empathetic and worried for her in regards to that instead of just criticizing her. I don't think we got enough of Quokka to justify her running away with them at the end of the book. Maybe she and Sora become close, researching different books on history, or she could be a spy for the Triumvirate, just something to give her a more active role in the story. Taipan, Royal, and Dugong were interesting. I found Dugong's crush on Sora to be cute, but I wish it was developed a little bit more. Maybe at the start of the book, Taipan could tell him to attack Umber and Sora, but he's too busy staring at her and thinking about how pretty she is or something. I already mentioned that Royal should be a spy and someone Beryl uses for leverage against Monarch and Glowworm, but other than that, he just seemed plain cruel. I think that he and Taipan have potential to be future antagonists. They just seem so selfish and evil. Poa was another character I liked. She has this intense pressure from Beryl, since her ancestor Waterfall was an animus. If we could see more of Beryl treating her poorly, or her trying to make up for the lack of power that she has, that could be very interesting. I'd like to explore that feeling of inferiority and the feeling of you're not enough, because it's something so many kids can relate to. It would be a good dive into how this affects her, instead of Umber just saying, "Oh, it's okay, you're enough." I think it should have been more of a journey, maybe to a point where Poa resents Waterfall and animus magic because it's something she can't obtain. Even make her obsessed with the concept, reading scrolls on precipice and magic, and this could help Umber down the line when he's researching animus magic and the history of the island. A good end to her character arc could have been her finding out that Waterfall enchanted her bloodline to never birth another animus because she finds it too dangerous. Then Poa could stop being obsessed and finally remember her self-worth and how amazing she is, even without animus magic. I think that character arc would provide something readers could really connect to or empathize with, making the story and characters feel more real. Harmony is the last new character I'd like to talk about. Her egg hasn't hatched in around 3,000 years, and she's from the original village of Harmony. There's not much to talk about since she just hatches at the end of the book, but I'm interested to see where her story goes. I hope that she's one of the future protagonists near the end of the arc when she's grown up. On to my predictions. I think that the next book will focus on the disappearance of the queens. Since Beryl is no longer an active threat, I doubt the new perspective will be a dragon inside the Dungeon Isle. I think it's more likely to be a Pyrean dragon. If it's not, I think Quokka or Mulberry might be the next protagonist, so that we can still get news from the Dungeon Isle while still connecting with dragons from Pyria. In regards to Harmony and the other egg, I think the other egg not hatching could be a major plot point. I also think that'd be interesting to bring Harmony into the memory room and learn more about the ancient timeline. I'd love to see the members of the triumvirate change too, maybe an election in the future book. Maybe their voting system could be passed along to some of the other tribes, but I highly doubt that would happen. Maybe a situation where Queen Coral dies and the Sea Wings would have to vote between Tsunami, Anemone, or Auklet so that they don't have to do another war of succession. I also wonder if Monarch would go back to the Soakwings now that Wasp doesn't rule them. I know she really didn't want to run away again, but now that her tribe is without a clear ruler, maybe she could go visit her own old home and reestablish hierarchy there. Overall, I predict the book will follow a Pyrean dragon whose queen is missing. Umber, Mulberry, and Quokka will be busy raising Harmony for 3 years, so I don't think they'll be a main focus. Perhaps they go and visit Pyria with Harmony and get involved with the missing queen's plot. I think the second egg will hatch at some point in Book 17, and that the rest of the tribes will learn about the Court of Refuge. I believe the only missing queens are those that are related to the ones in the past timeline of Book 16, so I think we'll be learning more about that past timeline with Precipice. The prophecy does say that the hybrid prince will save the queens, so maybe this next book will be Mulberry's POV. But there are really so many places the story can go. I think the queens will be saved by the end of Book 17, or at least the majority of them, since I don't think the tribes can go a whole book without queens unless a greater evil is revealed in the next book. Thank you for listening to my thoughts on this book. If you're interested in this type of content and you want to see more, make sure that you like and comment so I know to continue this. See you all next time. I'm sorry for the mumbling and ranting, but I really do not want to have to re-record this. Have a good day or night. Bye!